Sup YouTube, Jamie the Kid 00 here. So I told myself I wasn't really going to make one of these segments, but to be honest, I need new segments, and I can talk about stuff. I do that kind of well. So YCS Seattle / Tacoma happened recently. I'm not sure why these YCSs have two names. I'm not that educated on areas of the US. Sorry. I can't say that the result was expected, but I can see it as justified. So, for those of you who've been living under a rock, Inzektorz won the YCS, with Mermails, the favourite to win, coming up second, which in my opinion I feel the guy he really deserved to win, but that's other news. So the top 32, as far as I've seen, because let's see, Konami's coverage is bad. The top 32, as far as I've seen, is basically a pretty good reflection of what is meta right now and what is tier 1 and 2. Because it was a little splash of everything. Wind-ups were there, Macro Rabbit was there, as was expected. I'm not sure if Heroes topped, but I think Heroes topped. And just a rather good splash of things like Mermail, and kind of what we expected to top, really. There was a pretty good showing day too for things like Spellcasters and Dolce. Interesting decks, but decks that people didn't actually think would top, so they followed their expected trajectories. I feel that those archetypes will be a lot better in the future rather than now. I feel their expansions in Cosmo Blazar will be a lot better. Either way, continuing on from YCS Tacoma, Inzektorz won. So a lot of people go, well, why did Inzektorz win? Macrocosmos was rife. There were just so many things designed for remove from play. Yes, there were things designed for remove from play. However, remove from play is a really broad term. While people were playing a lot of removal cards, you've got to remember that those removal cards, for the most part, had no effect on Inzektorz. People were playing what? There was a massive decline in the play of Phoenix Chain, which is a card which hits Inzektorz. 90% of people weren't playing main decked Veilers anymore, and half as many were siding them. So few decks sided Veilers. They sided Maxis, but not Veilers. So you can see where this is going, because everyone was siding Macros and Fissures, so they couldn't actually play Veilers. And Macro Rabbit didn't play Veilers because it main Macro. So you can see where the majority of where the big hole for Inzektorz is appearing. Also, the other removal things, you've got to remember that Macro is about the only remove from play card that hits Inzektorz. People were, yes, admittedly playing Bottomless and Deep Prison, but how many cards in Inzektorz does Bottomless and Deep Prison hit? Deep Prison hits nothing unless they haven't hit Hornet yet. Bottomless only hits Centipede. You could argue that's a big hit, but Centipede is 3 cards in a 40 card main deck. And that deck will usually play MSTs, some variants play Lance. I don't think the winner played Lance, but some variants play Lance, so you can see the void appearing. Conversely, we can also talk about the side deck hate not doing its job. As we will have seen, Mermails in the hands of, I cannot remember, Norberto's hands, who came second, they just pushed their way through everything in the meta. So that was a surprise. Pushed his way through in top 32. He played Jogi Orlando with his Macro Rabbit and completely pushed through that. He played against Wilson Sang with his wind-ups. 2 decks which can both side into remove from play and have fairly big trap lineups it push through. Now that is frightening, because decks which were fully prepared and actually meta geared towards beating Mermails couldn't stop it. So that's kind of frightening. I'm personally not going to build Mermails, but it's more a matter of they kind of cost a fortune than anything else. I'd build them if they were Inzektor priced, but quite frankly, they're not. They're really, really expensive, with Megalos going for 50 quid, which is a lot of dollars, put it that way. It's like $80. One other factor that will probably have contributed to Mermails actually topping, rather than Mermails just kind of doing badly, was the fact that Mermails were played in the hands of some of the best players we have in the game. Now, people will argue against me, but let's face it, the ARG players are pretty good. They're not, there are players who are equal to them, if not better, but the ARG players are a pretty good representation of the higher bracket in gaming, in this game in the US. And let's see now, the majority of ARG played Mermails, or at least some of the bigger players, with Jeff Jones and Fraser Smith playing it, and all sorts of people like that. It really does show that maybe there was an element of pro pilot, because the majority of them day 2'd, And in the feature matches, you could see that the Mermail players who had been making top and things like that were very efficient and making very good plays. So you could argue there was a little bit of pro pilot, but I feel that Mermails are going to be a good deck. They are really going to kind of have an impact on the meta. So I don't think people should drop side deck cards. I think they should be gearing their side deck towards them. I feel, however, though, because the meta is still really diverse, siding Soul Drain isn't the best plan. Some people decided Soul Drain over things like Macrocosm, over real removal. And also, apologies for the typing in the background. I share a room with Cupcakey, so I couldn't exactly tell her not to use her computer. There were various people who were siding out real removal for things like Soul Drain, which while it gave them an edge against Mermail, it subtracted from their matchups against other things. So you could argue that Mermail managed to top because other things were beating the decks geared towards beating Mermails, if you see what I'm getting at. Decks which ignored Inzektas as a tier 2 deck and focused more on Mermails cutting their Inzekta side for Mermails will inherently lose to Inzektas. That isn't a very relevant example, and that's possibly how Inzektas won the YCS. Also, another factor of the YCS was the fact that in the analysis of the meta, big decks are becoming a lot more powerful than small decks. Windups have been receding and Rabbit has been receding, and the only small attack-based monster deck that really realistically topped was Inzektas. A lot of big beta decks have been topping. Mermails have access to big betas. While they do have a similar Dino Rabbit weakness, the fact that they lose to monsters with 2500 or higher, the ability to constantly pump out monsters with 2k or higher attack is quite powerful. The ability to constantly pump out Megalo is really quite good. Karakuri Geargear or Geargear variants can constantly pump out a Machina Fortress, constantly topping 25, or punch out things like Karakuri Shogun, which is 26, or Steel Shogun at 28. Chaos Dragons have seen a presence, again 25 and 28 beaters. And the decks continue. I feel that, as I said, while Windups and Dino Rabbit things with kind of smaller monsters are starting to recede, really heavy beaters are starting to take the fore, and I think this meta is turning into a bit of a beat stick meta. It is still incredibly varied, but that's kind of my reading of how the YCS has been going. Call me uneducated on this if I have made some assertions that are incorrect. I haven't had enough time to realistically read through a lot of the coverage because I have been quite busy with uni, but this has been my kind of takes on the YCS. I don't have anything else to say realistically, but I am going to be doing a much more in-depth analysis of YCS Barcelona because the European coverage is far better than the US coverage, quite frankly. So I will have a lot more information to work with. Otherwise, this has been Jamie the Kid 00 with a YCS brief analysis of YCS Seattle and YCS Tacoma, whichever one you wish to call it. And I will see you guys soon with some more content. If you've enjoyed this, please thumbs it up and let me know you've enjoyed it and let me know you want to see more of this. I promise you that the content in these segments will be a lot more refined when I do more. I've just done this kind of quick prototype one to see if it works. And yeah, just generally let me know what you think. This is Jamie the Kid 00, and I'll see you soon. Bye.